Hello everyone, I'm RecV5, and today we're going to be going through a game mechanic breakdown for Hot Shots Golf 2. Today we're going to be getting a better understanding of what a character's in-game control rating means, and how it affects their ability to make certain kinds of shots. The main character we're going to be using in testing today obviously is Gex, because he has access to a fairly wide variety of control ratings. His control rating starts out as a D, but with the right club and ball combinations, we can get him to have an E control rating, which is absolutely terrible. Or we can get him to have a C control rating, or even a B control rating. I'll also use Sweet Tooth to demonstrate what A and S control ratings look like later on. We'll be testing things out primarily on course number 6, hole number 2 here. And the reason for this is because, as you can see, the fairway is fairly long, fairly flat, and it acts kind of like a driving range. So this will kind of be like a perfect thing to use for our testing scenario. So for demonstration, when I test a control rating, I'll hit 15 shots each time I demonstrate a control rating at a particular range. I'll be talking roughly in terms of spread, in terms of fairway stripes, and I don't mean like the diagonal fairway stripes that you see here, because those are actually going to be a little bit wider than if they were running directly towards me. But there's not really another hole in the game with a fairway this flat, so I have to use this fairway instead, and we're just going to have to make do. And I might also talk in terms of spread in terms of feet, if I can kind of eyeball how many feet are between balls from my shot marker to the edge of the spread. But so it's not going to be particularly accurate, but it should be sufficient for demonstration purposes. But anyways, enough of that. First off, let's get a high level understanding of what control actually is. Control affects the accuracy of your shots. That is to say, the higher your control rating, the more true your shot aim will be. So if I'm aiming here and I have a perfect S control rating, almost every single shot that I hit is going to be almost completely perfectly on line with that little yellow marker. Whereas the worse my control rating gets, the more we'll get random variation between left and right from that control rating. Basically, a bad control rating introduces a lot of randomness and unpredictability into your shots, even if I hit the perfect impact zone 100% of the time. Now, let's take a look at how Gex is set up here. Do you see that sort of cone of light that's coming off of his club down at the bottom near where he addresses the ball? That cone shows the initial horizontal launch angle for all possible shots that Gex can make, including perfect impact, including sweet spot impact in the pink area of the impact zone, including a shank in the red area of the impact zone, or even if I were to miss the impact zone entirely and totally flub a shot, that will also be represented in the angle of that cone. Generally speaking, perfect impact will give the smallest amount of spread in a shot. So if I were to hit perfect impact every single time, we get a fairly narrow circle around this yellow marker, followed by just hitting the pink area of the impact zone will give you a somewhat wider spread. Hitting shanks, either left or right, because you know there's left shanks and right shanks, will also have a wider spread than hitting it in the pink or hitting it in the perfect impact zone. And obviously flubs can go pretty much anywhere, although there is a bit of a fixed direction that you can kind of manipulate with those, but we'll get into that in some other time. Additionally, as you can see, when I cycle through my club selection, smaller clubs have a much smaller cone of light, and larger clubs have a much larger cone of light. This also means with a shank or flub with a smaller club, your ball will go far less off target than it will with a shank or a flub with a larger club. Side spin can also impact the degree of spread to a limited degree. Now I can't really show that graphically here, but if I were to hit shots with side spin here, fades will cause the ball to land more to the left if we're hitting uphill. So if this was uphill, I'd expect my shots, if I'm aiming here, to land more over here. And if I was hitting draws, I'd expect my shots to do the opposite and land more over here. Or if I were hitting downhill and I were hitting fades, I'd actually expect the ball to continue curving while it travels through the air. And so my shots are actually going to land more on this side. And with a draw, it would be the opposite. And that can also have further interaction too when you land on the surface of the green, because, you know, a fade and a draw will affect how a ball rolls on the green, and that'll further increase the, or further alter the effects of your accuracy. But I'm not going to get too far into that for this video, because that's a whole different rabbit hole. So, now, all of what we've just covered is good for theory and practice, but good for theory, but let's take a look at how things look in practice. Gex here, with my favorite beginners clubs and big air ball, has a control rating of D, right? This isn't a very good control rating, but it does mean that he can still generally hit what he's aiming at. So, using his driver, right here, I'm going to aim down this fairway at this spot, and I'm going to hit 15 shots, and I'll pause so you don't have to watch that. I'm not going to put you through that. And I'll show you guys what the spread looks like after I'm done. Okay, we're back. And as you can see, I've more or less completely covered the fairway with balls. I did not shank a single shot. I did hit a couple in the pink. I hit a good decent number in perfect impact. I'm not so worried about the vertical variation in distance. That doesn't matter so much. But we'll take a look at what we got here, right? So, the majority of my shots are probably within 5 fairway stripes, if these were vertical fairway stripes. And I'd say probably maybe 15 feet to the right, and maybe like 20 feet to the left is going to be where the majority of my shots are going to end up. That's how much room I'm going to need to accurately plan a shot with this club. But as you can see, because of how much randomness, the lack of accuracy that his low control rating gives me, even hitting a fairway this wide with a driver like this, it's still kind of up in the air as to whether I'm actually going to end up where I want to be. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys how much more or an accuracy improves when we switch to a smaller club. And I'm going to hit a 2-iron because this difference is actually even noticeable between like a 4-wood and a 2-iron. So I'll pause again and we'll take a look at that. And we're back. And as you can see, the spread is significantly more accurate than it was when I was using my driver, right? So much so that if I were to compare a 4-wood to, say, this 2-iron, it might even be worth using a power shot 2-iron instead of clubbing up to a 4-wood in certain situations. But we'll see that later on. So this gives me, say, 2 fairway stripes on each side, or maybe about 10 or 12 feet on each side. I'm not quite sure how wide a fairway stripe is. But it's a reasonable amount of accuracy for, say, if you're trying to go for 2 on a par 5 or something like that. It makes this at least a viable club to use. But as we can see, it's still not very good. But just for completeness sake, I'm going to show you a short iron, just to show you how much this does cut down when you're using a short iron. So I'm going to switch to a 9-iron. And then I'm going to do this again, and then we'll see how much tighter that is compared to this spread. And with a D control rating, you can see that's what a 9-iron looks like. So it's almost kind of like throwing darts, right? The worst case scenario, I may be 7 feet off target, but that one was pretty uncommon. The majority, I'm maybe like, 2 or 3 feet off target, maybe 2, right? So within a single fairway strike, easily, right? So that kind of gives you an idea of how club selection can impact control rating, and as such, it may even be beneficial, even if you have a good size impact zone like you do with the beginners clubs here, if you tee off with, say, a 2-iron, if you're trying to hit a very narrow fairway or you're trying to play in a high wind and you need to make an accurate tee shot, you can always club up for your second shot, right? The most important thing is hitting the fairway first and avoiding the rough and avoiding hazards so that you can at least have a fighting chance on your second shot. So, move on from here. I'm going to show you what other control ratings look like. So, I'm going to switch to a 4-wood as the standard club of testing here. And I'm going to go through an E control rating, a D control rating using this same club setup actually. And then I'll use a C control rating, a B control rating, and I might even switch characters and show you an A control rating and an S control rating as well. So I'm going to hit 15 shots, 4 woods all across the board in order to demonstrate this stuff. And to start off, I'm going to start with Gex again here. And we're going to go big air clubs and big air ball. And this will give him an E control rating, the worst control rating in the game. Now, there's a little bit of variance in E. He can't actually get the absolute lowest rating, but it's close enough to the lowest rating that it'll give you a good idea. And I'll hit 15 shots with this, and we can take a look and see what that looks like. Alright, and so, with an E control rating, hitting this 4-wood, as you can see, the shots are pretty much all over the place. It's pretty much as bad as when I was using the beginner's club and the big air ball with the beginner's clubs, right? Except we're still doing the big air thing here, so we've still got an E for control rating. And so I need about probably 3 fairway stripes to each side of my ball in order to hit what I'm aiming at with a 4-wood here, which is pretty bad. Alright, so we'll take a look at the beginner's clubs and the big air ball, and I'll actually clear the balls from the field here, and we'll take a look again to see how a 4-wood performs using this club combination. Okay, and with a D control rating here, you can see the spread is a little bit more narrow for the most part. Now, at the extremes, we're still about three fairway stripes out, but our general cluster of balls is more close together, probably within about 2.5 fairway stripes. Alright, so it's not actually that much different from the driver with this club combination with the D control rating as it is with the 4-wood, and that sort of gives you an idea too how much of a big contrast there is between the 4-wood and the 2-iron for accuracy. But yeah, it's not that much of an improvement from the E control rating, but at least in terms of consistency with this central group here, inside here, it is a somewhat marked improvement. And this is really about as low of a control rating as I would want to go to if I had to play a round of golf and be consistent, because you don't need to thread the needle on every single shot, but this does at least put you so that you can do most things with reliable amount of confidence, and then make informed decisions upon when you want to take those risky shots to thread the needle, right? Knowing that you have this margin of error when you have to make those shots. Now what I'll do is I'll clear the balls from the field again, and I'll equip Gex with the pinhole clubs and the big air ball here, and that will give him a C control rating. And I'll hit some more 4-woods, and we'll see how that looks. And we're back. And if I switch to a 3-wood here, just so we can read the ball spread, you can see that the shot cluster in the middle there is even more tight than it is, than it started off as. Now, I've still got a fair bit of variation. I'd probably say 2.5 fairway stripes to the left, and maybe 2.5 fairway stripes to the right. But as you can see, we're also starting to notice a general trend now too, right? Because this tee box is slightly downhill from this fairway, so we're starting to see the effects of Gex's natural fade on the ball, where shots that are going, when you hit a fade downhill, the ball lands generally towards the right of where you're aiming, and that's exactly what we're starting to see now. And our cluster's getting a little bit tighter too, so the primary cluster there is about oh, I don't know, 2 fairway stripes. You know, things are getting significantly better than they were. Maybe 2.5 fairway stripes. So I would feel somewhat confident playing with this, but we'll go up to a B control rating now, and we'll take a look at how that looks instead. I'll clear the balls from the field again. We'll switch to pinhole ball now too to get our super high control rating up, and we'll start one more time. And we're back. And as you can see, this is a very big improvement over the C control rating even, right? If we take a look here, it almost looks like when I initially hit that 2-iron that I was hitting at the start of the video with the D control rating, but now we're hitting it with a 4-wood, right? And this is a very tight cluster, maybe 2 fairway stripes on each side, and as you can see too, the stray shots that land far to the left of the marker are now completely gone with this control rating, right? So generally speaking, everything I hit is going to follow the shape of Gex's shot now, and we're not going to get any weird random stray shots anymore. And this is pretty significant too, right? Because we're talking, you know, if I land to the left of the pin, we're talking maybe I'm like 8 feet away, 7 feet away. You know, maybe a little bit if we take that far extreme one, I'd be like, you know, 15 or 20 feet away. But for the most part, I'm going to be like 9 or 10 feet away if I land to the right of the pin, if the marker is the pin. And that's pretty good for, you know, this kind of distance where you'd be hitting this kind of club. But, so that's just gives you an idea of the significant degree your control rating has and your accuracy has on even the length of putts that you'll end up with in a game. Like, if you have a higher control rating, you will have shorter putts from long distances, guaranteed. You won't have as much distance for your shots, but the consistency factor means that you're going to get more benefit from your shot planning. You're not going to get screwed over by RNG, right? Just because the shot decides it wants to stray off on this one particular time. Anyways, for completeness' sake, I'm going to show off, I'm going to switch to Sweet Tooth. I'm going to clear the balls from the field, and I'm going to show you with Sweet Tooth Standard Club Standard Ball what an A control rating looks like, and then I'll switch over to Pinhole Club's Pinhole Ball and show you what an S control rating looks like. So first, we're going to demonstrate the A control rating with a 4-wood. And we're back. And this pretty much looks like I'm hitting a mid-iron, if I'm completely honest, right? We've got like 1 fairway stripe to the left, maybe 1.5 fairway stripes to the right. This is extremely accurate, right? If you hit a ball with an A control rating, the ball is going to go relatively close to where you're aiming, no matter what club you're hitting, and it's only going to get better as you get shorter. To the point where, if you're perfect on your aim, you will be hitting pins, right? But anyways, like this is, if I was using Gex and I were to get a spread like this, I'd only get a spread like this with, say, I don't know, I want to say a 7-iron, but probably like a 5-iron would also give me a spread like this. So that kind of gives you an idea of how quickly this snowballs into a very accurate shot. So I'm going to come back again with the pinhole clubs, and we're going to take a look at what the highest control rating in the game looks like, an S control rating, because Sweet Tooth can get a perfect control rating, and I'll show you guys what that looks like. Okay, and we're back at last. And as you can see, with an S control rating, this spread basically looks like I'm hitting a 9-iron out there. I'm hitting my 208-yard 9-iron. But, you know, we're basically within a single fairway stripe. You could aim at a target that is like a single fairway stripe wide, and you could hit it and hit it consistently over and over and over again, right? Without too much worry about hitting hazards, which is good because Sweet Tooth here, in particular, is weak in bunkers, right? So he's going to suffer a huge penalty if you actually manage to hit a hazard. But anyways, if you're hitting something like a short club, at a green or something like that, if you narrow this down to say like a 7 iron or an 8 iron or a 9 iron, like you'd feel really good that you're going to be playing the ball properly and hitting according to target. And if you're not hitting near your target with a control rating this high, it's because your shot planning was just not good enough, or you were trying to do some kind of shot that required perfect impact, super backspin in order to stop it on a hard slope or a hard break, and you just couldn't get that and the ball rolled away from you or something like that. All right. But yeah, I hope this gives you guys exactly a full-scale idea of what a control rating does. All right. I'm going to go back to Gex, and I'm going to hit a couple of shots using nothing but fade side spin now, just so that you can see between the very beginning of this video when I hit my driver over and over again completely straight, and when I hit my driver over and over again adding side spin, in order to show you just how that affects the accuracy of your shots as well, right? Because as I've stated multiple times throughout my playthrough, I do consistently put side spin on every single shot I hit in order to try to manipulate the accuracy of my shots to get balls to land further in one direction or the other. So I'll show you guys how that works and how that looks in effect. Okay, and we're back for the last time, and as you can see, I've hit another 15 shots with Gex's driver using the beginner's Big Air Club combination that we started with. But the difference is that every single shot that I hit using fade spin here, just like this. So every single shot I hit looked just like this. And what I'm doing by hitting fades over and over again, even though he already hits a fade, is I'm removing shot variance, left to right shot variance from the shot. So you can see we have very few shots that have gone to the left this time. Almost everything has gone to the right, because that's what you would expect hitting off of this uphill tee box onto a downhill fairway. You would expect more shots to go to the right than to the left. And it's because I'm not allowing him to have variance by just saying, I'm not going to choose a shot shape, let's just hit the ball. I'm picking a very deliberate shot shape, which is going to limit the possibility of outcomes that this ball can go. It's going to limit the possibility of outcomes I can get out of this cone. And if I were to go the other way, it looks a little bit different. Actually, if you have a character who hits a fade, they will have much better control results like this. If you play with their shot shape, so if I'm hitting with Gex and I'm playing a lot of fades, that's going to give me a much better benefit doing this, because this almost looks like a 2-iron, right? From when I hit that 2-iron at the beginning of the video, you're going to get a lot more benefit from playing with your shot shape than against your shot shape. But even playing against your shot shape, if you're just choosing a shot direction, that's going to serve you better than it would if you're not choosing a shot direction. And this is why I don't play characters who hit the ball straight in this game, right? Or if I do play a character who hits the ball straight, I still continuously and constantly put side spin on the ball anyways, right? The straight shot is just like a sort of in the back pocket option kind of thing for when you really need it. But the majority of the time you want to be curving your ball left to right, right to left, choose a shot shape and hit it, because it will actually give you vastly more consistent results in terms of accuracy, both off the tee and when you're approaching a green, right? And that's without even talking about how certain shot shapes will roll on a green when you land on approach. But this is a pretty clear indication, I think, of the difference in consistency that you get, the increase in consistency that you gain from playing this kind of shot, right? Like, as you can see, it doesn't matter how many shots I hit into this area, they're all going to be far more consistent than when I'm playing without spin, right? And I've hit the center of the impact zone, I've hit the pink part of the impact zone. This is just way better, and this is really the only way to play if you have a low control rating, right? It's a way you can kind of compensate for like really weak accuracy club combinations, like big air club and big air ball, right? Because those have like absolute dog shit in terms of control. But it's also a way you can play something like beginner's club and big air ball and still be able to hit the ball a reasonable amount of distance and have a good impact zone off the tee and have a character with good spin and still get decent consistency out of them. It does kind of limit, you know, like if those trees were a little bit harder on the left, closer in on the left-hand side there and maybe a bit taller, it might limit my shot options a little in terms of how I'm going to work the shot. I might be forced to hit a draw or something like that, but overall, the benefits are pretty clear to putting spin on your ball with every single shot. And so I'm not just putting spin on randomly when you guys see me in the playthrough. I'm really just trying to control the accuracy of the shots, and I just wanted to make this video to show you guys what control does, how it looks from different ratings, and how you can manipulate it. So, I hope you learned something. And I'm RecV5, and I hope you have a wonderful day.